Hello, Mr. Jagan. Thank you for joining this call.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? I don't know. My video is stuck. I just don't know. Is it
So feel free to rejoin. Just you can exit and you can try to rejoin if you think that's better.
okay?
Yeah, even I can see the video be stuck. Yes,
It is
thank
still,
you.
yeah. Is it still showing a static or
Let me see from LinkedIn on how it looks for the other audience.
okay?
I think let's ask them if they can see you. Yes, I think it is. It is showing static for you on the LinkedIn as well.
I don't know. I mean, because camera is on.
Yeah.
I think we can maybe we can go ahead because let's see if it comes in between because my camera is on and I can pretty much see. Ah, so yeah, he says, Ravi, thank you, Ravi. So he says he can see both of us.
Mr. Raviteja Siddha is giving us a heads on that
Yeah,
they can see both of us. So that's glad to know.
great, great, great. All
So
right.
thank you for joining this call and starting with the very first thing we want to know from you, uh, because when we read this book about leadership, my first thing came into my mind is I saw you working with several leaders, training them and enabling them to be better performers at Freshworks and where which was my first company, which is your current company where you're working. So
Yeah.
like what are the kind of experiences you had, what are the kind of people, what are the different kind of leaders you got to meet, and would you like to share your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So actually, yeah, with started my career in sales, then moved it to L&D. So over the period of nearly 3 decades, I
Mm.
worked with various leaders um, and also have done a lot of leadership workshops, attended seminars, webinars, all sort of things, and yeah, the experience has been quite fascinating because with every leader you get to learn a lot. I remember my first leader whom I worked with in Pfizer when I was in sales, like Mr. Anand Kulkarni. He was more of a people's person, and then I've learned a lot of things about from his style of leadership because he was already 15 years old in the organization, and then I moved out of Pfizer, but then he continued and worked for 35 plus years in Pfizer, and he is known to have created lot many leaders under him. So that's one leader whom I admire, and similarly. While I stepped into training in ICFI, I worked with Mr. Abhijit Bhattacharya, and
Mhm.
from whom I learned a lot about, the basics of training. And then, his style of leadership was more aggressive, but then also more empathetic as well. I've
Yeah.
learned a lot from it. And then, of course, I worked in Wipro, NTT Data, and then I started my own stint and with Crestpoint Consultants, where I delivered bulletproof manager training. Naresh Purushottam, who happens to be the CEO of the company, and so he has decades of experience training leaders, and that's another opportunity which I had, which was really amazing because under his tutelage, I think I have learned a lot. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think with every experience, you keep learning a lot, and I think the culmination of that is the book that I've actually written. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so amazing because even when I saw hop, skip, and jump, we could see a process, a journey there. And
Yeah,
mostly, who wants to hop and skip? It's mostly the people who are like have 5 to 8 years of experience. Usually, they
yeah,
think of doing an executive MBA to become a leader, or they
yeah,
think of doing something like a on-campus leadership program within the company, like being in the founder's office or CEO's office. And what
yeah,
other options and opportunities do you see? Like, someone has 8 years of experience or 10 years of experience, and they
okay,
feel they're not getting the kind of leadership roles, or even if they get the designation, they don't get the task to work on such things.
mm.
At times it's just a designation change. How do they know if they're really becoming a leader? What kind of tasks or responsibilities should they be expecting and be getting to make them feel like they're getting the real leadership exposure in the 10th year of experience?
Yeah, actually, a lot of times, leaders don't have a sounding board. This is something which they have to be cautious about, because when you are a leader, you are leading the team, and then you probably would design some strategies and all that. But then, unless you have a sounding board, a mentor or a coach or a guide who can actually help you, where you can go to and talk to them and understand if you are in the right path or not. And if you fail to do so, then obviously you are missing the bus there. Because see, what happens is that a lot of times leaders do not have time, or they think that they are doing something right.
Mm.
But then it's like damage is already done, because
Yeah.
we are dealing with people, and if they don't do this more often with their mentor or guide or coach, then what happens is that there is no way for them to know about their style, and then they have to wait for probably a 360-degree feedback to get to
Mm.
know how they are doing. And like typically in Freshworks also, we have a glint survey that comes in every year, where
Mm.
an survey goes in. So that kind of anonymous surveys are good, but then the leader should not wait for these surveys to be launched and then know about how their style of leadership is. Actually, they can actually go to their supervisors or their managers, and then, or go to the mentor and then get their inputs. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I feel is, and that's why precisely why we have even a CEO of a company has a
Mm.
board, and all the strategies are discussed with the board, and the board actually suggests certain changes, or anything that needs to be done is
Mm.
suggestions are given by the board, so that actually is there already in business. So I think the leader
Yeah.
should start practicing that more often. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like, it's pretty insightful on what you said. And also, one sentence you said got me struck. You said that leaders always think they're doing the right thing because they have
Yeah.
a reason for whatever they're doing, and it is mostly based on their experiences. Even
Yeah.
the associates around them could have different experiences, their own seniors and have different experiences, subordinates have different experiences. So, the amalgamation always gets into a little dilemma. So, I
Yeah.
want to ask you on that lines, do they really know they aren't good leaders? And if at all someone is in confusion, what should they analyze? What are the aspects they have to think? Okay, am I a good leader? Because people don't have the courage to say, especially in Indian context, it is
Yes.
not an egalitarian world, I would say, in the corporate world. Like, it depends
Yeah.
on person to person, but if we see the larger picture, people are little sensitive to feedback. Not just
Mm.
leaders, even associates, interns, and even early career people like me at times are pretty little sensitive to feedback. you know
Yeah.
how can they self-analyze? Am I a good leader? What are the aspects or criteria they should consider to analyze? Am I a good? Because villains don't know. We watch movies. In every movie, villain never knows he is the villain unless and until a
Yeah.
climax fighting happens and a background music plays. Hey, dude, you are the villain. Until then, he
Yeah.
doesn't know he's the villain. He thinks he's the hero. Even nowadays, the kind
Yeah.
of music villains are getting, it's so
Correct.
elevation, too much of elevation. So, in the corporate world, how would they know if they're right or wrong?
Yeah, so that's what typically in self-analysis, this may not be revealed. So first
Mm.
thing, when they become a leader, that they need to be open to ideas and suggestions. So that is the primary thing that a leader should do. If they are not open to ideas and suggestions, then I don't think they will have And secondly is that mostly independent contributors, when they start taking up leadership roles and then people roles, so what worked for them as an individual contributor may not necessarily work here as a leader. So it's because you're dealing with people who have different mindsets, different thought process, different experiences. So all these matter. So ideally a self analysis, somebody who is open only can do a self analysis. If the person feels that I'm already good, then there is no self analysis there. It is it is it is very difficult for that person to actually be a leader and then sustain as a leader,
Mm.
because the person should be open, and
Mm.
they can do the self analysis, and they need to be open to ideas and suggestions. So that's where mentor's role comes in a lot, or their immediate supervisor or manager should be
Yeah.
able to guide them.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And yeah, it's pretty insightful even on how we have to proceed, because some of the audience in the live we are happening now, even they are curious on the very same lines, because uh, people are planning to venture out into leadership roles, and it's about how to get there. And once you get into it, it's like a ship. Leadership is like a ship. You can get into
Yeah,
the ship, but how do we sail it the right way is one thing we always think. That's what is called as a leadership, sportsmanship. You can get into it, but most
yeah,
of the times the battles we think about is how to get into the ship, how to become a
yeah,
cricketer, how to become a actor, how to become a leader. But once you get into that, even in the top B schools, people plan how to get into Oxford, Harvard, ESCP, where I study, or INSEAD. But once after you get into that, what exactly are you planning to do? That is something people have to think in the same lines of the leadership. And regarding the book, I read your book. Thanks you for sending that to me. And you added two new chapters in the version 2.0.
correct,
So I would like to know your emphasis on the VUCA world, and also your first version came before the pandemic, little
correct,
before the
correct,
pandemic, just a
correct.
couple of months before the pandemic. And now
Yes,
your second version came little after the global recession. All these things are happening, like when layoffs became a trend in several companies. Like, we don't want to mention. Every company
yeah,
wants to retain its employees, but still, the situations force them. We can understand that. But still, like,
yeah.
what are the new things that the version two has to say to the new age leaders?
Yeah, so thank you. That's a great question. Post-pandemic, what has happened is that the business cycles have changed. The decision process of how leaders are making their decisions, especially, for example, if you have to buy tools, there are more decision makers are involved now. So there is a lot more stakeholders are being considered for every decision. And
Hmm.
the VUCA world, there is new term that also has been coined. That's called BANI, like BANI, brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible. So the countering of VUCA world is more of vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. So that's
Hmm.
the opposite of VUCA. So a leader should have vision, should have proper understanding and a lot of clarity and agility in terms of making those decisions. And if it doesn't work, actually be agile and make changes as the environment changes. Now, coming back
Yeah.
to what I have changed in the book is, one is that I added two new chapters like growth mindset
Hmm.
and empathy.
Hmm.
So the business environment changed so rapidly that there is enormous pressure, not just on the leaders, even on the employees, because of the various macro and microeconomic conditions that are happening. And then jobs are getting difficult, and the existing
Hmm.
job, a lot of shift in the way results are being measured. So all that is causing a
Yeah.
lot of strain and stress in relationships. So that's why leaders should have more empathy towards the team members, understanding that from their point of view, and not just
Hmm.
they need to also look at each person differently. It is not like you can
Hmm.
have a basket kind of approach to everything. Similarly,
Yeah.
growth mindset very essential, especially when the growth rates have actually slowed down. Because if you
Hmm.
see data across industries, the growth has definitely slowed down. But then
Yeah.
in that slowdown itself, the leader should have that growth mindset. Unless the person has that, they'll not be
Hmm.
able to take the team forward. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's my take. I think the two new chapters actually make a lot of sense in the current world. Plus
Hmm.
what I've changed from the previous version is that I've added exercises for them to reflect after every chapter, which
Yeah.
was not there in the first version, and
Yeah.
of course, a lot more examples and a lot more stories. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I can see a lot of stories, and even storytelling has been a great importance for leaders also. And also, when I read your book, what I understand
yeah,
is that stories influenced people, because we
yeah,
can't meet every leader. We can't meet
yeah,
Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, or Mr. Kirish, or Sridhar Vembu, or anyone. Even in European circuit, there are several leaders of Dion, Louis Vuitton, and all these companies, and we can only read the stories. And thank you for putting the stories into that, so we can get a good exposure to that. And now,
yeah,
as you mentioned the different styles, and you also mentioned about empathy in B
yeah,
school, where I'm a B school student, and at almost every B school, the very first thing a HR teacher or a teacher of CSR, a teacher of marketing, teacher of customer experience, every teacher is trying to highlight the prospect of empathy. Even Satya
yeah,
Nadella mentioned that empathy is the most important thing for a leader.
correct.
So
Yeah,
having you mentioning that into the book as a new version, I would say it's like the biggest USP, and your understanding of the Asia and the Indian markets of the leadership
yeah,
literally played a great role. And thank you for highlighting that for us. And now there is one question I would like to ask, because as I mentioned, I'm a B school student, and our curiosity about leadership would be at different lines, and I could see
yeah,
that reflecting a lot in our book. But one thing is, there is a subject called as human resource management and organizational behavior. In that,
mm,
there is a chapter called as leadership. In that
mm,
leadership, we saw different kind of leadership angles for different industry and domain. Like in
mm,
military, they want leaders who command, and the subordinates of the team who just listen, no questions
mm,
asked. But in
correct.
retail or FMCG, there is time to make decisions like shampoo, soaps, and all. You want to
Yeah,
launch a marketing campaign, you have time, you have egalitarian leaders. In the same
mm,
way, especially it again difference from country to country. The leadership in Dubai would be different, Arab and others, and the leadership in Finland or Norway, Sweden, Spain or France would be more relaxed or egalitarian, I would say. And what have you observed? It's not forget the examples I gave. Is I was telling what I learned in the college, but from you in the real world you have seen. What are the kind of differences in
yeah,
leadership across locations, domains, and industries? And
yeah,
would you like to please share about that? Leadership
yeah.
differences across this.
Yeah. It's good that you brought this point because definitely there is some variance in terms of industries. I've even worked with the armed forces like CISF, and I've trained a lot of them.
No.
Um, there is definitely a command and control kind of structure because that is essential in armed forces and police and those kind of segments. What I've seen is in terms of manufacturing, I work with a lot of manufacturing companies, whether it is pharmaceuticals or automobile manufacturing companies. There also there is a little hierarchy. Simply, I think the reason is because there are a lot of compliances that are to be followed. Like there are processes, they cannot compromise on that because
Mm.
quality gets affected. So
Yeah.
at times they are more hierarchical, but I think um, otherwise, I think the style and of leadership is by and large similar across different industries, but there are certain constraints that leaders are forced to adhere to sometimes because of the
Mm.
industry standards that they have to maintain. Otherwise, I don't see much of a variance in terms of.
Mm.
And now you're also mentioning about cultural differences. Yes, there are
Mm.
cultural differences. However, in a global marketplace like this, especially because I've
Mm.
worked in SaaS companies for now almost 15 plus years now, what I've seen is
Mm.
that now it's become a global village. So
Yeah.
uh, while there are cultural differences that will impact, but I think
Mm.
because organizational culture actually plays a major role there,
Mm.
and because of that, I think leaders do survive and then get their job done in even
Mm.
multicultural.
Yeah. Hello, I lost your audio. Are you speaking?
Yeah,
Okay,
are
sorry,
you able
sorry.
to hear me? Yeah,
Yes, now I can hear you. Now I can hear.
yeah,
Even throughout the call, people are saying that your video is static, but the audio is pretty good. Like, the audio
yeah,
we're having, audio interaction is pretty good, but the
yeah.
video has been little static. When we did the technical test, it was actually
Yeah,
the video
that's.
was going well, but now I feel the video is static for some reason.
I don't know. I mean, I've probably. Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, it's like we
Eh,
can't do much about that. And thank you for the
yeah,
audience for actually adjusting to that. And yeah, looking the good side of things. Like, I'm sad, like, you're not able to see the best of his presentation and his, just to see the best of video. But I hope the audio helped for few of us. And I'm glad something is working out well. And
yeah.
usually this platform
Technology,
did work out well before.
yeah, technology always has, we have tested it, and then yet, always expect the unexpected. That's the VUCA world for you.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. And yeah, the world is conspiring to ensure we get the hands-on experience to that.
Yeah,
But now is not the best time to experience it. But still, yeah, thank you. Like, moving on. So we covered about the book and we covered about your leadership journey and experiences. Now, what I would like to ask you is that, as you just mentioned about, you mentioned about the VUCA world, you mentioned about empathy, you mentioned about the new chapters and how they are different, and also how the leadership styles are different across the domains and industries, and that gives a great context on how we should plan our own leadership journeys and how what lot more we can learn from the leadership book. And one question I want to ask is, with nearly 3 decades of experience in sales enablement and training leaders, what key changes have you observed in leadership demands over time? And from company to company, the leadership demands would be different. What the CEO expects, and again, a CPO expects something, chief HR officer expects something from your team. So
yeah,
how do we balance that, and how do we serve that purpose? Because there are different leaders every time that we have to serve, and within you are also a pretty prominent leader within the system. So how do you balance all that different perspectives, different expectations and requirements? Because one example I want to add up, the chief HR officer wants to ensure the people are good, satisfied, and also they wouldn't worry much about the budgets. But marketing people want to worry literally nothing about budgets. But the chief revenue officer would come and say, "Let us not put a lot of money into this campaign. We have budget constraints. Let us not hire a lot of people." And so,
yeah,
everybody has different expectations for different their own purpose they have to solve. So, how do
yeah.
you balance this, and how do you approach these situations?
Yeah, I think primarily, a lot of organizations have something called OKRs, which are cascaded down,
Yeah.
and this is what really keeps everything under check. Look, so CEO gives a set of OKRs, and then when it gets cascaded to different departments,
Mm.
unless there is a coordinated effort between teams, it
Mm.
becomes difficult for a leader. Like, for example, I am in revenue enablement.
Mm.
We are perfectly in sync with the sales and the marketing teams,
Mm.
and finance at times, and tools team. There are various teams that we collaborate with, and that
Yeah.
collaboration is because unless you have thorough understanding of what overall company's goal and aim is, and then what is my role in that.
Mm.
If I'm not able to do my bit,
Mm.
then obviously it's like a puzzle, right? And that part of the puzzle is not solved.
Yeah.
So I think that's why even in the book I've mentioned a chapter on collaboration. So collaboration in the modern day
Mm.
leader is very important, especially because of uh, there are many different teams that any leader has to work with, and
Mm.
working in those is not an option anymore. So
Yeah.
that's where collaboration comes in, and I think as a leader it is very important, not just working with their team, but also how effectively they can navigate and work with other teams becomes so critical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Jagan. And I want to ask you one thing. One
yeah,
last question for today's session, and then we go to the Q&A with our audience. So we
yeah,
ask their questions.
yeah.
And the last question I want to ask you is that how can someone navigate their career into sales enablement, and what all teams do you get to work closely? Because this is we understood about the book, now we want to understand about your journey
Yeah.
before we wrap up the conversation, because some people have joined this conversation to understand, because you are a leader in the sales enablement domain and training leaders and experts in the sales domain. So we want to know, how can they navigate their career into sales enablement? What are the technical skills and soft skills they need to get a career into your domain?
Yeah, so yeah, it's an interesting question because you know um so for getting into revenue enablement or sales enablement roles, one thing definitely an experience in a customer facing role is very critical, because if you
Mm,
don't have that, it's very difficult to empathize or understand the salesperson's word. Or any customer facing roles word. So that's the first step. I think unless you have that experience of being in front of the customer in any form, it could be a BDR,
mm,
it could be a AE, or it could be a CSM.
mm,
That is very vital, having to
mm,
know the customer side of the business very well. And second is that as a revenue enablement part of revenue enablement team, I get to work with obviously the sales teams across different, like I've already mentioned about the sales teams like BDRs or
mm,
AE. We have account managers, we have CSMs, we have
mm,
support. We work with all of these teams. That's one. Second is we closely work with the product marketing teams in terms of getting the messaging and all that.
mm,
We also work very closely with the tools team, which is again part of enablement. But there are
mm.
then there is sales programs.
Yeah.
There so many teams are involved in making revenue enablement a success. And obviously it has to be tied with what is the vision that a CRO has or this overall org has in terms of driving revenue. And
Mm,
then we are basically there to enhance and improve the productivity of the sales rep using targeted programs. It could be based need based, or it could be calendarized programs that we have.
mm,
And in terms of skill sets, obviously yes, they need to have good facilitation skills if it is a part, if they want to be part of the delivery of sales enablement.
mm,
And in terms of there are of course other roles that they can be, like for example, they can be part of program managing, like I
mm,
mentioned about sales programs. That could be one area which you can get into. Or you can be somebody who is more into communication and then want to create the communique that goes to the sales reps or even to the customers. So
mm,
generally revenue enablement also handles that part. So depending on their interest, they can get into any of these streams.
mm.
Yeah, so that is what my take. Yes, I think, but whatever it is, I think having customer facing experience is very critical to be in this role. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and even I feel it's a great experience for you and the people in your team to have a great connect internally and externally with
Correct.
customers and sales emerging leaders and managers on how they should approach
Yeah.
and fit into the system, fit into the culture, because they come from different companies or some are even freshers. Because I remember when
Yeah.
joined the company, you're the first person who taught me on
Yeah.
how to approach a sales cycle, because I joined the marketing team, the product marketing
Yeah.
team. And as a fresher, as a graduate trainee back then, I had to go through pretty good training, and you're the first person I found. And I was like
Yeah.
pretty under. And even there was Mr. Pillalamari, his
Kaushik.
name,
Yeah.
Kaushik. Yeah,
Kaushik.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
you and Kaushik took my first training session, and we look
Yeah.
back, it's like 3 years, I guess. It's been 3 years
Yeah.
since then, and yeah, I felt like you get to have a great connect with the internal and external teams, and so happy that the life has been going well on both of our ends. And for you, you had a great
Yeah.
Diwali yesterday, and
Thank
thank you
you.
so much
Thank
for
you.
talking to us. And
Yeah.
even the Q&A, the people messaged, and I got to ask those questions in the. Okay, Mr. Nishant has a question for us.
Yeah.
Mr. Nishant Singh, who is a manager of customer support.
Yeah. I know Nishant. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nishant.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. He was asking about courses, right? Any courses on leadership? I think,
Mm,
you know, um, there are courses, but then I would suggest the purpose of writing the book is also about that. You don't generally get to have all of them together in one place, and that's the purpose why I wrote this book. Second, of course, is that what better place than actually following leaders in your own organization, or it could be from other industries. So having a mentor
mm,
and observing how leaders are behaving in your own organization can be a good barometer for you to actually test that skills yourself.
yeah.
um, I would maybe I can, Nishant, I know you personally, so I can even suggest some courses, but some things which are depends also on your availability of time, because there are long-term courses, there are short-term courses. Ultimately, the courses can help you in terms of giving a direction, but ultimately it is again your own experience and practice that helps you enhance those skills. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Nishant. I hope the question answered, and thank you for joining this call, Nishant, because uh, and asking such a valuable question. And I want to add a little perspective on that, with your permission, which is courses are in this world. If it's online, it's not much different to a YouTube video. It's just better recording videos and more organized way of putting stuff. But instead of spending too much on courses, it's better to read a book and bring that habit of reading a book, is what I feel. It's just like watching Harry Potter or reading Harry Potter. Same with a course. If you read it, you see it from our own perspective. Harry Potter, the architecture, the design, the wallpaper, the background, the BGM, everything is designed and everything is kept into place. Same with the Ramayana, Mahabharata, or anything we read, we watch. The director's vision is dominating there. The
Correct, correct,
colors, the music, the graphics, the editing, what should be there, what should not be there. From the
correct,
Valmiki's version or from the Harry Potter's author's version, you
correct.
say any book to movie. So in same way, course is like a movie version of a book for a
Yeah.
non-fiction. Course
Well,
YouTube
well
videos
said.
na.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
even Philip Kotler's marketing, he wrote five different versions, each marketing book looking this fat, but someone creates a marketing course on YouTube or Udemy or Coursera, teaching in 20 videos. Yeah, they are teaching the syllabus, they teach covering the curriculum essentials, but to understand the Philip Kotler's psychology or Anshoff's psychology in marketing strategy and penetration, or to understand Michael Porter's vision on strategy in different industries and the five forces, you should read the book, not just the course. Same for leadership. I am not senior enough to suggest this, but on little experience I had, I feel reading a book, any book, we have a book of Mr. Jagan on leadership, and there are several other books to even understand different perspectives of leaders. Because Mr. Jagan has a great perspective on this, and to know how great this perspective is, we should read five other books of leaderships, different authors. Then we understand the value of this, or any book. We can have a prudent and wise judgment and our own perspective. Five different books reading together and different times gives us one new perspective from our own leadership perspective. So that's one thing I want to advise. And courses are just too expensive than a book. So it's better to buy a book and read it on a free time, and that's a better way. And even courses are great. They solve a different purpose. You can finish it in good time. You can have your own way of watching it. Yeah, it's just our advice on that front. Any other questions, guys? The dear audience, feel free to ask any other questions. Otherwise, we would wrap up in 2 minutes. Yeah, so as of now, I feel there aren't any questions. So I would like to ask few things about the purchase of this book, because you sent me as a gift, and thank you for that. But for audience or anyone who wants to buy this product, or to reach out,
Yeah,
what are the
it's
platforms they can look into, and what are the countries the book is available for sale? You feel?
yeah. Right now, it's there on Kindle, so anybody across the world can read it on Kindle. And if you are a subscriber, then you get to read it free. Otherwise, you have to purchase it. And of course, it's there on Amazon for India. People in India, it's there on Amazon. And yeah, so currently only these two channels. I'm trying to get it on Google Books very shortly, maybe
Mm.
it. Yeah, otherwise, these are the only two places where you can get the book. Yeah.
Amazing. So even I could find it on Amazon Spain. I'm actually glad about when I searched for hop, skip, and leadership. I feel
Yeah.
Amazon is actually doing a great job in actually enabling selling this product through their network and their distribution channels across the world. I could actually find your book on Amazon Spain around for like
Oh,
40 euros, but in India we
okay.
can get this for like pretty good price, like 500 rupees if I'm not wrong. I can see here 489 rupees, and it's a great book to read. I was able to read this in like 5 sittings, 50 pages at once. Like, it was pretty smooth and easy to understand. And the best thing about this book from reader's perspective is the font is pretty big. So, like most of the books we see nowadays are like pretty tiny, tiny font, wherein after reading for 6 pages we feel like tired. I want to sleep now. This is a book that
Yeah.
makes you wake up, not does not make you sleep. My mom says that she reads these novels and books when she doesn't feel sleepy enough. She starts reading a book and she feels sleepy. Many people do that, you know, like
Yeah.
a Sunday book or newspaper like or book. The book we get Swati, Inadu, Sakshi book kind of books or any novel. But this book is something we have to read. My best suggestion is read early morning 5:30 a.m. till 6 a.m. It's best to have a new perspective after you wake up. That is my personal opinion after reading this book. It makes you wake up. It does not make you sleep. So reading at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. around this time is the best time to read this book. And
Thank you. Thank
thank you
um,
so much.
thank you. Do share your feedback on the book, and thank you very much for joining. And it was pleasure interacting with you all. And yeah, thank you,
Thank
Bhanu,
you.
for our.
Thank you so much for accepting to be on this conversation, and thank you for sharing valuable insights to us. And more than anyone, I have, I'm sure everybody got to understand a lot of things. And once we publish this LinkedIn Live as a video on YouTube and also on LinkedIn platform, people get to revisit our thoughts and share their comments and what they feel. And everyone, as Mr. Jagan mentioned, feel free to read the book and share your feedback so we can just keep moving. And thank you so much for coming this call. I got to learn a lot from you. While I ask
Thank,
questions, I even get to listen a first-hand experience of your precious time on how the thought process has been. Thank you for so much for doing this call.
thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining, and so happy to have this call on a good weekend like this.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. See you. Bye.